getting there plenty early, thinking I could be the first guy there, and Kobe it would always beat me there. And his devotion to the game and how much he grew, and it even goes back to when he was a kid. I was listening to some podcasts today in my office while I was watching film, and he was 11 years old, living in Philadelphia, and he played in a summer league with kids his own age. And he said when he was 11, he said he went through the whole summer and didn't score a point. Never made a basket, never made a free throw. Everything was so hard, and everybody was bigger and stronger. And he was from the suburbs in Philadelphia, so he got bullied a little bit by the city kids. And he was expressing how his dad said, "Hey, bud, whether you score 60 points or whether you score 0 points, just so you know, I'm going to love you just the same." But he was so driven, and then by the time he was 14, so 3 years later, by the time he was 14, he was ranked the #1 player in Pennsylvania. And that was with high school seniors. He was just going to be a freshman. So, the work that he put in, a lot of people talk about the work, but pretty impressive. He was so devoted to the game. And I was the old man on that Laker team, and I remember patting him on the back and trying to keep him up. We were completely at opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of, and I'd been through a lot of that stuff as a rookie, knowing how hard it was. But when you're teammates and when you wear the same jersey, even if it was only for two 10-day contracts, you don't ever take that away from anybody. And the irony of the whole situation is, toward the later part of this last week and through the weekend, I was talking to our team about treating each other right and playing the game right. And actually, in the pregame speech Saturday prior to our game, I said, all of us in this room, all the players and the coaches, we don't know which one of us is going to be gone first, but somebody is. There's going to be, at some point, one of us is going to pass. And you just don't want to have regrets, and that's the great thing about sports, is it brings people from all different areas and races and religions and everything else. And when you're a team in that regard, you're just trying to do one thing. So, nobody can ever take that away from myself or from Kobe and how he treated his teammates. And it was with a lot of respect. And so it's been a hard day.
Yeah, I was lucky enough today on my radio show to be able to talk to 4 former teammates of Kobe Bryant's. Guys that weren't big-time players necessarily. I talked to Corey Blunt, who you would have played with on that team.
Yeah.
Corey was on that team. I was able to catch up with Brian Russell, who played against Kobe and then was a teammate with him. I was able to talk to J.R. Ryder today, who played for 1 year and got a championship ring. There's J.R. And then I talked to Ronnie Price, who played against Kobe when he was with the Jazz. And then at the end of his career, he got a chance, and he said, Kobe and Byron Scott vouched for me. And he was in, and he wasn't guaranteed, but they vouched for him, so the Lakers guaranteed him. And he told a story kind of like you about he had just gotten to the Lakers, and he was going to go out and work out on a game day at like 6 in the morning. 6:30 in the morning, and he's leaving the hotel to go work out, and Kobe's coming back in a full sweat at 6:30, 6:45 in the morning with two guys that were working out with him, and he just kind of winked at him like, you got to get up earlier than that to beat me to my workout. Yeah. That was the type of guy he was.
Yeah, and it's really sad. Part of the podcast today was talking about how was heavily involved with his daughters.
Right.
And they would train at 4 in the morning. Before school. One of his daughters just got her driver's permit, so they'd take 2 cars to the gym. And he said one of the biggest responsibilities he felt as a dad, you can talk about working hard and trying to teach kids, but there's no better example than doing it.
Right.
And so he wanted his kids to witness. So he said he kind of got out of shape when he retired from the game and got a little chunky. And we've all been there. And then he said, man, this is a great opportunity for me to instill some work ethic in my kids. Plus I can work out with them. And so, that was a great way to tie it in. And it's just heartbreaking to think not only the passing of his little daughter, but the other kids and the fairly
the
newborn
teammates that were on the helicopter with him.
Yeah, and just seeing the pictures at Laker games and different games where that's a big part of this. You finish playing and you want to have that connection with your kids, and so that's really hard to swallow, knowing that a lot of that's going to be missed.
Did he, in subsequent years, when you were coaching with the Bucks or the Nets, did you guys ever have many interact? Did he remember those 2 or 3 weeks that you guys were together with the Lakers?
Yeah, I think he always remembers that, and there's always you're part of the club when you're on the team, and then our playing crossed. But I was with the Bucks for a couple of years as a head coach there, and that was always a big part of the scouting report. So you always see somebody that you were teammates with or coached with, and again, it's probably the most joyful part of this job is the people. You don't remember a lot of the games, but you just remember a lot of the people, and you remember how people treat you, and you want to try to do the best to be a good teammate and do those things. So I think, and self-admitted Kobe today in one of the podcasts I was listening to, said he didn't necessarily have that figured out until about 2008. So he played about 10 years, about half of his NBA career. He started figuring out that there was more to it than his little world. And so he would talk about how he would watch film in the summer. He'd watch film, and he wasn't watching film for any other reason than to figure out some of his teammates. And he wanted to figure out how he could help his teammates and what he could, almost like a coach breaking down film with somebody. So, and Shaq was injured for one period of time, and Phil called him in and said, hey, we need you to take more of a scoring load. And so there was a stretch of about 10 games where he was averaging 40 points a game. And then Shaq came back, and Phil called him in and said, okay, it's enough of that, and Kobe was, from a selfish point of view, you'd say, well, I'm going to do my thing. But Phil was talking big picture, and for us to be winning games in June, it's going to take a lot of components, and we need Shaq. And so Kobe completely took a back seat. Shaq got back in the rhythm, and that was one of the years they ended up winning a championship. So he was completely committed to winning, and I think especially more so once he hit about the halfway point of his career.
All right, let's grab a break. We're going to get to some Utah basketball on the other side. I had planned to get to that, but we got to it right off the bat, and that's a good thing. The one thing to take away from this as much as anything else, hug your loved ones tonight. Give somebody a phone call maybe you haven't spoken to in a while. Shoot them a text and tell them how much they mean to you. We'll take a time out of the Coach's Show, which is brought to us tonight by Anheuser-Busch. Keep it crisp, Utah fans, and please drink responsible. This is the Coach's Show from Smith's from Learfield IMG College. prices market fresh. They sponsor the Coaches Show each and every week. We're back here at the basketball office in the Huntsman basketball facility here on campus, and Utah got back-to-back wins in their pockets over the weekend. You played two kind of wildly different teams, at least from their approach. One super long, super athletic, very defensive-minded, and the other team, in theory, wants to shoot it a little bit more, get up and down the floor a little bit more in Washington State, but you figured out a way in both games to get it done.
Well, certainly on Thursday that was a struggle, playing against the Huskies and their length, and they were fresh. If you're taking your choice, you probably want to have the Washington State first, just to be geared up, and locked in defensively on what they're doing, and then you hope maybe some of the air gets taken out of the athletes on the second night. But the first game was all about just stick-to-itiveness, and we stayed in the fight, and
right.
We had plenty of opportunities to fold the tent. We had the big 6-point play. I think it was 6 points with the free throws in the basket, and
technical foul.
Super low turnover game for us. Out-rebounded Washington by 9. There were a lot of positive things that happened, but we just couldn't throw it in the ocean, shooting-wise. And I don't think too many teams win games when you shoot. I think we shot 30% overall.
34 overall and 12 from the three-point arc.
Three for 24.
Uh-huh.
Managed to make our free throws when we needed to. We're leading the conference in free throw percentage at 75, and that's about where we were on that. Well, we were 24 for 32 in that ball game. So, it was huge. I thought it was an earlier game. It was a little funky in the first half to get things going, and then then the crowd really ignited, I thought, with 5-6 minutes to go. And it was a great win for our kids, having lost 4 games in a row. I was really thinking about the importance for the kids, as much as they're investing and working, and we had a good week of practice. And then I said, forget the kids. This is good for me too. You have to, at some point, you have to have a little bit of that elixir, that magical potion of winning and feeling good. And then in the second game, it was a little bit of ebb and flow too. We got down early, came back, had a great finish to the first half, and then they came out and punched us in the mouth in the second half and went on about a 10-0 run or something that was crazy. And, you look around this league, there's people that are losing games with 16, 20-point leads in the second half. And so for us to be able to kind of stem the tide there and keep the momentum and then get it going, and I thought Rylan was great. I thought Mickey and Brandon Carlson gave us a huge lift on Saturday. And
I said this during the game and after the game. I thought it was Brandon's best game as the Ute when you consider the opponent. He had some bigger scoring totals, bigger statistical games in the non-conference season, but considering the importance of the game, the type of competition you were playing, and his flow in the game. He had 3 block shots, Larry, that were big, and then he knocked down a couple of perimeter shots, too. He had that rhythm baseline jump shot. I thought it was the best game Brandon had played for you.
Yeah, no, and he's been playing well in practice the last couple of weeks, and I think what we're seeing a little bit is a little bit more of a comfort level for a lot of our young kids. There's certainly not the level of teaching that we went through, and it's like anything. The game is really fast when you're at a new level. Brandon coming off a mission, Mickey coming from overseas. Mickey probably on the other side of the situation where he's played. He needs a little break. He played on the young team in Finland, the old team in Finland, and then he's with us in the summer. And the kid just by nature wants to work hard. But I think the Christmas break and some of our shortened practices and focus has really allowed some guys to free up their mind. Jackson Brenchley hit 2 big threes on Saturday, 2 for 2 from 3. So I've used the phrase the essence of a team, and we need a bunch of guys to step up. So it certainly is great to get that boost and for guys to start feeling good about themselves. And now what we have to do is bottle some of that up and take it on the road. I thought we played decently on the road until we got the league. And so we've got to understand that there's going to be some adverse situations, but let's keep dependent on each other.
The other thing about Mickey Yantunen, too, is he didn't get here till mid-August. I mean, most of your guys arrived here in late May, early June, and had the summer to acclimate. And I'm just talking about acclimate to not just basketball and the teammates, but life in college and in the United States.
Yeah.
Mickey came from another country, and then he literally got here, meets his teammates, and then starts school immediately. Those other guys maybe took a class in the summertime, but they had a couple of months to kind of ease into things. Mickey went right from high-level senior basketball with Finland to you're going to college now, and now you're going to practice, now you're going to go to class and all that stuff.
Yeah, no, it's been fun, though. I mean, he's all our freshmen are really, I think they're relaxed now, and I've always said that the best way to become a really good college basketball player is through the experience and through some of the minutes. And, there's a lot of times we look out there on the court and there's 3 or 4 freshmen running around and maybe a sophomore or two. So, everybody stays with it. We need to continue to improve and, continue to stay sharp with the mental plan. But again, I think when you're being taught so much and you're thinking all the time, a lot of the guys couldn't just make a play because they, caught up in the mental side. And now I think there's a little more freedom of movement and natural instincts are coming into play. And guys are also understanding strengths and weaknesses of each other. And the unity amongst the team, I think, is better. And that takes time.
All right, let's take a time out. When we come back, our weekly awards, our Team Player of the Week, our Subway Sub of the Week. Just a reminder, be down in Southern California this week, 7:30 for the start time on Thursday night against USC. And then coming up on Sunday, it's a 1 o'clock tip-off against UCLA at Pauley Pavilion. More on the Coaches Show next from Learfield IMG College. facility, and the basketball office is here in the Huntsman Basketball Building. It's the Larry Krystkowiak Coaches Show, brought to you by Smith's. Low prices, market fresh. We pass out awards every week. Our Team Utah Player of the Week, brought to you by University of Utah Health. Our Subway Sub of the Week, brought to us by our friends at Subway. Let's start with our Player of the Week this week. This one might be pretty easy because the Pac-12 decided to pass out an award today, and he wasn't named Player of the Week in the Pac-12, but he was named Freshman of the Week, but he was in the running for Player of the Week as well. Should we go with Rylan Jones?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and it was a little spooky, the first play of the game against Washington State on the jump ball. I don't know if you remembered, but
they got whacked in the head.
Yeah, and, Rise had a few concussions, or I know he's had two actually. Got one at the Spokane Hoop Fest playing with my boys. He got when they were little shavers, and then he had one
in practice, didn't he?
Yeah. So that, and just to think there had to be, it's cleared medically, but it's never fun to start a game that way. But, man, he sure responded both nights. Both nights, Washington game, having 9 assists in a game where I don't remember making 9 baskets. That was the game. That was the game.
He may have assisted on every one of your buckets.
I mean, and to almost have 10 assists in a game like that where you shoot 30-some% and are 3 for 24 from 3. But, defensively, we took 4 charges in the Washington game. We took 5 against Washington State, key charges against L&B. And he just gets his body. And there were more charges that weren't called, and I think he's so good at it that oftentimes the referees don't necessarily think that he's there. So it's both ends of the floor. I think he's got a great knack for it and distributed the ball, and then he just kind of took the scoring load upon himself going down the stretch Saturday, which was...
Well, that's not even before we get to Saturday. The 7 of 8 free throws in the final 2:32.
Yeah.
You guys don't get a bucket in the final 4 minutes, but you make 12 of 13 free throws, and Rylan hit 7 of the 8 himself, including the game winners.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And then, of course, you mentioned Saturday. He had his own mini 9-0 run. Late in that game, he hit a couple of threes, or he hit a three, and he hit a couple of threes.
Floater or layup.
The floater, the layup. He just used that search dribble, kept it alive, and got the bucket too. But yeah, he seems to have a knack for that late in games.
Yes, and also, I think he's got the best shot fake we have on the team. He gets guys lifted, jumping, and then he uses his body. Reminds me a little bit of Justin Bibbins. Not going to be the biggest player on the court, or the biggest at his position, but he really understands angles, and he's shooting it so well. I think he's maybe 86% or something from the free throw line. So those are opportunities that he's figured out how to get there more often. But I thought he was big. There was one I think when he finished his 9-0 run, they called timeout, and our team was coming over, and I think Timmy and Mickey or Timmy and Brandon were looking at each other, and they were giving it kind of like the Michael Jordan when he put his hands up, like this kid's playing some ball. So it was a lot of fun.
So he'll be our Team Player of the Week this week. He was named Freshman of the Week this week by the Pac-12 Conference. Team Player of the Week brought to you by University of Utah Health, with 16 convenient neighborhood health centers and a game plan for your family's health. Visit them online at uofuhealth.org. And I'll give a small shout out here. You were talking about taking charges. Riley Batten took that big charge at the end of the Washington game. He kind of set himself, and I went back and watched it later. He wasn't the primary defender. He was almost the secondary defender there. The primary got slightly beat, and then he stood up and took that charge from, I think, Jamal Bay on the final play of the Washington game.
No, it was huge. And a charge is my favorite play in the game. And I think our players realize that now. It's got so much impact. It, gets guys in foul trouble. Certainly takes away a little bit of the vigor that the other team, if they're trying to attack the basket. And, it's better than a block shot because of that factor, that you get the foul and you definitely get the possession. But it's a big part of it. We've talked a lot about guarding your guy, and Rylan will take some charges on his own guy. But it's when other people are being broken down off the dribble, depending on who you're guarding.
Right.
If you're guarding Jonah Matthews, like we will be Thursday night, you better not be in trying to take a charge because he's deadly if he gets the pass for 3. But our guys are starting to understand personnel a little bit more, and I know Riley was in off of someone that he could be in off of, and then we can guard the ball collectively, not just the primary defender, but have guys come in and help out.
So brings us to our Subway Sub of the Week. The obvious choice would be, because he didn't start, Mickey Antunen. Now, he finishes a lot of games for you, but he had 16 Saturday, and he had, I think, 10 in the Washington game. Do you want to go with him as your Subway sub?
Yeah, Mickey's the guy there, too. And, with Stellar, I thought efficiency-wise, 4 for 4 at the Washington game. Is that right?
Yeah.
4 for 4 from the field, and then 8 for 9. Something like that in the Washington.
7 of 9, yeah.
7 of 9 in the Washington State game.
Plus minus was plus 19, and you've told me this multiple times. When Dave runs the numbers for you, you guys are most effective in points per possession when Mickey's on the floor.
Yeah, when he touches it, when Mickey finishes the play, he's at probably about 1.4 something points per possession. So we've got enough of a sample size with some of this data, and I think our team's starting to believe in him. I think Mickey's starting to gain some confidence, and I've tried to instill it in him. When you tell him individually that you're one of our more lethal options, now, don't pass up shots. And I think one of the things we're also seeing is, shooting confidence from the perimeter. He had a good shooting practice today. And then free throw wise, he's knocking them down as well. So seeing the ball go in the hoop is a big part of it, not just around the basket where he's so good, but to be able to stretch the floor a little bit.
Was that a big emphasis for you from Thursday to Saturday, not passing up open shots? And I understand some of the Thursday is the shot blocking that Washington brings, but I know when you went back, you had to have seen there were a lot of pretty good shots that maybe your guys passed on to throw it to somebody else, and maybe they weren't as open because of that length Washington has, but you didn't seem to do it as much on Saturday. Was that a point of kind of conversation Thursday to Saturday?
It certainly was. And you have a guy running at you that's more normal size rather than
Jackson Brenchley found out what length is out on the perimeter.
Yeah,
on that for sure.
You think you're open, but when a guy's flying at you with 7-foot reach and type of things, it takes on a little bit different. But I thought we really did a nice job passing the ball on Saturday. The guys, a high assist rate again, and if you see some of the early ones go in, that's huge for guys to not let. It's like on the free throw line. If you miss a few, then it kind of festers, and then it stays in guys' minds. And I thought the rim opened up really nice, and guys were knocking down some perimeter shots. But they didn't have the shot blocking, and we shot close to 70% from 2. We really had an emphasis of getting your feet in the paint, and without a shot blocker in there, I thought we were more potent there. And then also when they collapsed, we found shooters, but definitely a collective mindset.
All right, let's grab a break. Those are, by the way, our Subway Sub of the Week, brought to you by Subway, where you get the foot-long of the day. You also get chips, 2 cookies, and a drink for free at Subway. We'll come back. It's a big road trip this weekend going down to Southern California. UCLA on Sunday, USC on Thursday night. We'll talk about those games next right here from Learfield IMG College. Brought to you by Pepsi and Mountain Dew Code Red. Mountain Dew's proud to be the official soft drink of Utah basketball. Go Utes. Sometimes your players are jacked up like they've been drinking Mountain
Dew.
Like a bunch of spider monkeys jacked up on their Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew Code Red, proud sponsor of Utah Athletics. So, SoCal trip this weekend. Get to go down to see USC at the Galen Center on Thursday, and then UCLA over at Pauley Pavilion on a Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. USC's interesting because they're 12-8 right now, and 3-4 in Pac-12 play. But they've got some good wins under their belt. They've got a big time come from behind.
USC is 5-2, right, in league?
You're right. They are 5-2. I'm looking at something here. Never mind.
Yep.
My apologies.
Yep. That's what I'm here for. Spell check.
It's okay. Quite okay. I'm not going to call anybody out, but you can see that right there. But yeah, they're 5-2, and they've got some nice wins. They were down big at Stanford, and they erased a you were talking about teams blowing 20-point leads. Well, Stanford's a good basketball team. They got beat by USC, losing that 20-point lead. But anyway, Andy Enfield's got a good team. They got a very talented freshman. Nick Krystkowiak is back for what seems like his 17th year down there at USC. Pretty good guard play this year. When you've watched the Trojans, what stands out?
Well, they're really athletic. I mean, everybody in their backcourt kind of looks like probably what Witt's corners and safeties look like. You know, they're stocky dudes, and they're really good defensively. They're right with Washington when it comes to some of the numbers. They don't allow great percentages from 3 or 2. Two of the top shot blockers in the league. I think the big boy O squared is just right behind Stewart or behind Kyler Kelly and block shots at 3 a game, and then Krystkowiak blocks close to 2 a game. A really good rebounding team. You know, both the teams that we're going to face this weekend are in the top 4 in all the rebounding categories. And so, it's a high-powered group. Jonah Matthews is an elite shooter on the wing, and they've got all the pieces. You know, they've got the point guard play, they've got 2 or 3 really good shooters, and they've got post play, and they play defense, and they're an elite team in transition. So it's not unlike a lot of the Pac-12 teams right now that we're facing. You've got to be pretty good in a lot of different areas. They're 8-1 at home. So yeah, we're going to have our hands full with that game, and I think our guys are excited to try to get a little bit of this formula back to how you be successful on the road.
You mentioned O squared. Okongwu is his name. He's a freshman, very talented, 17 points, 8 rebounds, the 3 blocks a game. They've had good bigs in recent years, good athletic bigs. Shemezi Metu was a big 7-foot shot blocker a year ago. Is this guy a little bit more polished as a freshman than Metu was when he was a freshman?
I think from a skill level, for sure. Shooting super high percentages, and he's good, a good ISO player. 15 feet attacking. It's not simply a back to the basket type of player. So it's versatile, and they do a nice job with their big to big passing and run a bunch of different sets with screens to get him open on the move. But I think it's a fine line because we've got to find a little feel good on the road. We have to have a good offensive game plan. Because certainly you can't turn it over, but if you're missing a bunch of your shots, they're pretty lethal in transition. So we've got to see the ball go in to give us a little bit of that positive vibe. And so, it's going to be about a 50-50 blend this week on what it is. We did a lot of defense stuff today, and we worked on a lot of our own things, and then we're going to fine-tune, get into a little bit more of the offensive plan, both offensively, our offense and USC-specific offense in the next couple days. But it's a serious challenge, an athletic style team, and we get a little bit of that in both games, going unlike this weekend where it was 2 different animals. I think the focus early in this week is going to carry over to both teams because they're both really big and they both rebound and are physical presence.
And they like to run. These teams will,
always at home too.
Yeah, those teams really, both USC and UCLA, will run when they've got a chance to beat you in transition, won't they?
Yeah, we've got to be better. Our defensive numbers aren't nearly where they need to be. I think we addressed some of that today, and guys are wisening up and I think bringing a little bit more of an effort and a mindset to trying to get some earlier stops.
And we talk about O Squared and Nick Rakosovic, but Jonah Matthews is a terrific shooter. He was a guy you recruited out of high school a little bit, and he's a guy, I think he's got 45 made threes on the year.
Yeah, and they do a really good job finding him. You've got to be pretty detail-minded and locked in when you have him. A number of different actions, screening actions for him, whether he's under the basket coming out for shots or out on the perimeter and receiving flare screens and what we call a jet screen. They have a bunch of plays, so you can never put your guard down with him. And what he's done here as a senior, and he started to do it a little bit last year, to try to get out of that Ray Allen, mindset where everybody just runs him off threes. Now he's pretty dang good at getting into the rim too, and he's a strong kid and can finish around the basket. So he's become a little bit more of a hybrid type player instead of specifically a catch and shoot guy.
Well, and you were talking about Rylan Jones with you. The other thing that I've noticed Matthews add in the last year or so, and I'm sure he's still doing it, he is very good at that catch. You run at him, he's going to give you that ball fake and take that side dribble or that one dribble in or step back and shoot that three. He's added that to his game in recent years.
Yeah,
too.
And that's what a good player does. Maybe his first couple years in the Pac-12 was a little easier to guard because he didn't have great ball skills, but I could see him, and I know him and his family really well, and I know that's the next step. If you can become a guy that can drill it from three, and then you can get some guys flying by you to be able to put it on the floor in that mid-range game and finishing at the rim. And that's what he's done. He's a captain for their team, and he's a great kid. And, everybody's going to be walking into L.A. this weekend. Obviously, we're all going to be reminded about the Kobe thing, but a lot of those L.A. kids grew up, with Kobe as their idol. So this is going to be an emotional opportunity to go out and play some games, and I know our guys have been really touched by it as well. A lot of our guys, if you could ask them, their favorite player was Kobe. So there's going to be a lot of inspiration, and we got to be ready to match that intensity and some of that emotion that we're going to find on the road.
That's the interesting thing about especially the guys that are in the game today now. Michael was the guy for people my age, and he was a contemporary of yours. And then some of the younger guys now are kind of in that LeBron era, but the guys that are in the league today, LeBron's still in the league, but a lot of these guys, they grew up watching Kobe. These guys that are anywhere from 21 to 31, 32, there's a decade worth of guys that Kobe was that guy.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing about this today.
It's the trickle down. There's no doubt. Who like the music you like and the players you like, you have to be able to see them.
Yes.
And Kobe was in his prime for about 10 years, 12 years where, he was the real deal.
Yeah, he was. And he was a teammate of yours for a short time, as was Michael Jordan. You asked me to switch some things up last week. In our next segment, I'm going to ask Larry on the fly to give me his starting five of former teammates. Not including
at least
himself.
You gave me a little warning.
Yeah, I'm going to give you 3 minutes. 2 of them are easy. Even though you only played with one of them for a short period of time. But I want your starting five of former teammates.
All right.
When we get back. And then in the final segment, we'll get his Super Bowl prediction.
We can do that.
We'll do that next from Learfield IMG College. Bill Riley, Larry Krystkowiak with you. A couple of more minutes. Got to get Larry's Super Bowl pick. But before we do that, since we were talking earlier about Kobe, and he was a teammate, even if it was only for about 3 or 4 weeks. Michael was a teammate for a year with you. I wanted to get your all teammate team, your first team, and maybe do a second team if you want to, of guys you played with.
Well, I mean, first it started at the point guard, and people here in Salt Lake will love it, but it was without a doubt John Stockton.
Yep.
And then I would say like a second team guy, Paul Pressey, who was like the first point forward. You know, that was a guy you play. Both those guys, you'd be running around as a player, and like you would know you were open, but you're so used to like, oh yeah, and then all of a sudden when you're playing with those two, the ball would like
find you,
be right in your forehead, right where you needed it to be, and it was just amazing to play with those guys and their ability to make their teammates better. And then certainly as the shooting guard would be Jordan, would be the first guy, and then I would put right behind him another Milwaukee Buck in Sidney Moncrief, and just
Sid the Kid,
just the ultimate pro, and a dear friend to this day that helped me along as a young player and had bad knees. I was joking with you, or just about to tell you, but a lot of times you'd practice in high schools back then because you didn't have everybody practice facilities, and when you were in town at somebody's gym in somebody's city, go play at a local high school, and Sid would walk out on the court and do like, take 20 steps around, kind of be touching the floor with his foot, and he'd go, I can't go today, this gym's too hard. Which I joked, I laughed when I was young, but then you get older and you can tell when a gym floor is just built on concrete.
Yep.
And he knew that he didn't want to take the time and practice. Small forward had to be Scottie Pippen.
Yep.
And he was, you talk about just an unbelievable teammate. Scottie would do anything for you. And I think probably got some negative press and different things. The media was hard on him. It's good to see him back in TV, but God, he was a fun guy to be around and uplifting and try to lift you up. And then my power forward would be the guy right down the street here, Karl Malone. And my center would be Shaq. Played a year with him in Orlando, and would have to put Jack Sikma right next to him. There's a lot of Utah, Chicago, and Milwaukee.
Yeah. That
was just a highlight, and such a great era really to play in if you think kind of a wheelhouse, like back in the Mantle and the DiMaggio and those special eras when it's really a fun time to be a part of, and just love all those guys.
Yeah, you played with some great players in their prime and out of their prime too. All right, before we get out of here, got about 30 seconds. Who you like Sunday in the Super Bowl?
Well, you're not going to like my answer.
Okay.
But there's not a doubt in my mind that San Francisco's going to win.
Really?
Yeah.
How come?
Defense.
Really?
Yeah, I think they're an elite defensive team, and it's happened in a lot of Super Bowls.
Didn't you pick Clemson to win the national championship too?
Probably.
Okay. For their defense.
So if you're trying to make yourself feel better, I'd be fine if I'm wrong, but you asked me my pick. So.
All right. He's got San Francisco. I've got Kansas City. We'll talk to you Thursday night from Southern California. Enjoy it. This has been the Coaches Show from Learfield IMG College.